to Biblical Insights with Bob. Tonight we're going to look at Beatitude number 7. These have been short lessons on the Beatitudes, and this one is coming down to the close. We got one more after this. But Matthew 5:9 says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God." Let's start with a little story here. A young girl was working so diligently at her homework that her father noticed it and became curious and asked her what she was doing. She said, "I'm writing a report on the condition of the world and how to bring peace." The father said, "That's quite a challenge, isn't it?" She said, "Oh no," she said. "And don't worry, there's 3 of us in the class working on it." So what are peacemakers? Maybe we can start by talking about what they're not. They're not peacekeepers. Now, we have peacekeepers in the militaristic sense. They're there that if anything goes wrong, they'll keep peace by force and conflict. That's not what Jesus was talking about. They're not just peace lovers. You see, peace lovers will pay any price for peace. They'll do anything they can. They'll compromise. But Jesus said, Matthew 10:34, "Don't suppose that I've come to bring peace to earth. I didn't come to bring peace, but a sword." So not peace lovers that will pay any price for peace. Peace lovers might allow any kind of a threatening or dangerous situation to develop simply because they don't want to disturb the peace. They don't want to take any action. There's many persons who think that he's loving peace when in fact he's piling up trouble for the future because he refuses to face the situation and take the action which the situation demands. Not peace lovers. What are the requirements of a peacemaker? Maybe we should define peace. You see, peace is more than just the absence of conflict, absence of the negative, the absence of fear, but it's a sense of well-being. Now, the word the Jewish people use is shalom, which means peace, but it means a lot more. It means a sense of well-being, more than just absence of the negative, but the positive part of peace. Let me read a couple of verses from the 5th chapter of Micah here. You'll recognize these verses, but beginning at verse 2 of chapter 5, I'm reading from the New International Version here. "But you, Bethlehem Ephratah, though you're small among the clans of Judah, out of you shall come for me one who will be ruler over Israel, whose origins are from ancient times. Therefore Israel will be abandoned until the time she who is in labor gives birth, and the rest of his brothers return to join the Israelites. He will stand and shepherd his flock in the strength of the Lord his God, and they will live securely, for then his greatness will reach out to the ends of the earth." Verse 5 now, "And he will be their peace. When the Assyrian invaders invade our land and march through our fortresses, we will raise against him 7 shepherds and 8 leaders of men, and he will be their peace." And then from Isaiah 9, you recognize this too. "For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace." And then in John 14, another passage we're familiar with, again from the New International Version, Jesus said, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid." That's the peace we're defining here. That's the peace we're talking about. And so the peacemaker, first of all, has to have an inner peace himself. There has to be a security. There has to be peace with God. And I believe he also must have peace with his neighbors. You see, a peacemaker can't be one who's at odds with other people. He must be sincere and trustworthy. And here's the hard part. He has to talk to those who are at odds with him, not about them. Talk to them, not about them. That's a key thought right there. In Matthew 5, verse 23 and 24, the same chapter as the Beatitudes, 23 says, "Therefore, if you're offering your gift at the altar, and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar. First go and be reconciled to your brother, and then come and offer your gift." And then at chapter 18 of Matthew, verse 15, "If your brother sins against you, go and show him his fault, just between the two of you. If he listens to you, you have won your brother over." So that's what it takes to be a peacemaker. Now, what is the ministry of a peacemaker? He's a reconciler of broken relationships. He's a bridge builder. Now, here's a little story I read that's maybe a little humorous, but I think it gives us some thoughts. Smith and Jones were on the outs over some very trivial matter. This deeply concerned Deacon Brown, so he prayed that he might be a peacemaker. So he called on Smith and said, "What do you think of Jones?" "He's the meanest crank in the neighborhood." "But," said Deacon Brown, "you have to admit that he's very kind to his family." "Oh, sure, he's kind to his family, right? No one can deny that." The next day, Deacon Brown went to Jones and inquired, "Do you know what Smith said about you?" "No, but I can imagine how that scamp would lie about me." "This may surprise you, but he said you're very kind to your family." "What? Did Smith say that?" "Yes, he did." "Well, if you hadn't told me, I wouldn't have believed it." "What do you think of Smith?" asked Deacon Brown. "Truthfully, I believe he's a low-down scalawag. But you have to admit that he's very honest in his business." "Yeah, there's no getting around that. In business, he's a man you can trust." The next day, Brother Brown called on Smith again. "You know what Jones said about you? He claims you're a fellow that really can be trusted in business, and that you're scrupulously honest. You mean it?" "Yes, I do," said Brown. "Well, of all things," replied Smith with a happy smile. And so the next Sunday, these former enemies nodded to each other. Brown continued his meddling until the next annual business meeting of the church, when Smith and Jones shook hands and finally voted on the same side of the issue. So you see, this pastor, this deacon, did it by not spreading untruths, but bringing truths out that he could use to build a bridge from one to the other. Paul tells us that we have been given a ministry of reconciliation. He says this in 2 Corinthians 5, verses 18 and 19. Here again from the NIV. "All of this is from God, who reconciled us to himself through Christ and gave us the ministry of reconciliation." That God was reconciling the world to himself in Christ, not counting men's sins against them. And he has committed to us that message of reconciliation. Part of this might be an evangelism, reconciling, first of all, men to God. So, the peacemaker is also the initiator of right relationship. Not just the absence of conflict, but the best of relationships. He's the initiator, the peacemaker. He takes the first steps. I guess as I think about that, I need to ask myself, to whom do I need to take the first step today? Is it your wife or your husband, your spouse, your kids? Maybe someone that's hurt your feelings or said something bad against you? So there are situations for all of us where we could be peacemakers. Take the initiative. Be a peacemaker. Now, that's only the first half of the Beatitude. The last of it gives us the identity of a peacemaker. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called or identified as the Son of God. Now, notice that this just isn't just the benefits of being a child. In other words, the child receives provisions and clothing and things from the father. But if you say he's the son of his father, it's really saying that he's just like his dad. Remember, in the Bible we have Barnabas. Now in the Greek, Bar means son of. So Barnabas was the son of encouragement. He was just like an encourager. James and John, remember Jesus called them sons of thunder? That's because that's what they were like. I guess for me, I would really love to be called Bob Coy, the Son of God. Peacemakers, you see, are in the image of the Prince of Peace. Is that your desire? Blessed are the peacemakers. They shall be called the sons of God. Let's be in the image of the Prince of Peace. That's the seventh Beatitude. I hope it's been meaningful, our short discussion on it. Thank you again for being with us.